Hi there. I'm going to do my utmost best to keep this short, which I'm really bad at, but I'm going to try anyway. I just wanted to talk about some of the really cool electoral college jiu-jitsu that Trump in his campaign did today. So you probably heard that the electoral college electors met in their state capitals today, and the left-wing media is hyping it up as like, oh, it's a done deal, it's awesome, Biden won, and Trump's done and whatnot. But you probably didn't hear about some of the cool stuff that Trump did. So what they did was they convinced the candidates for electoral college in 7 states. 7 states. They got their candidates went to the state capitol and all voted for Trump. Now, what's interesting about this is, as of right now, as of today, those candidates, those votes don't mean anything, right? They haven't been certified by anybody. They're not official winners. So right now they're just rogue electors. But what they did, why this was a good move, was because there is precedence that later on, even though federal statute says today's the date, there is past precedent on electors being counted that come about after the electoral college. And the most recent that I'm aware of was 1960. It was Nixon versus Kennedy. Hawaii was a brand new state. It was the first time electing a president as a new state, and Nixon had won it, but just by maybe a couple hundred votes. Not even a couple hundred. It was like 100 and something. It was in the teens. I mean, he barely squeaked it out. And then there was a recount, and the recount showed that JFK won it. And then so there was a recertification, and it went for Congress. There was 2 sets of electors, and ultimately, I'll get to why it matters in a minute, like what happens when it gets to Congress. But ultimately, it went to JFK. But I'll get to that in a minute. So, the key is there's precedent here that you can have alternate slates of electors. Now, like I said, right now those alternate electors are meaningless because there's been no solid wins in the courts. The state legislatures haven't done anything hard and concrete yet, but the fact that they're there is a key to this, and it's going to be helpful in the future. So what'll happen is the states can still go back and they can retroactively certify these electors. So if there's several of these states, 5 of them I believe have GOP legislatures. There's Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and Arizona all have majority GOP state legislatures. And some of those states want to go back and use their Article 2, Section 1 authority to appoint their own electors and just throw away what was elected with the popular vote that happened last month, under the grounds that there was too much fraud and they have no idea, and we don't have time to carry out investigations to the point of where we can have like people get indicted and whatnot. But so there is enough doubt that the state legislatures can, with a clean conscience, override the vote and appoint, per Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution. They have sole plenary power to pick the electors. Plenary means absolute. There's nothing that can override it. The governor can't override it. Secretary of State can't override it. State law can't override it. Even the state constitutions arguably cannot override the state legislatures. The federal Constitution, Article 2, Section 1, is governing on this. And this is per John Eastman, who's actually one of Trump's attorneys, but he's not just Trump's attorney. He's considered one of the very best constitutional lawyers in the country, which is why Trump hired him. So what happened is, now we've got alternate slate that because these governors, some of these states, the governors have to call a special session in order to give them the opportunity to vote. And regardless of who the governor is, they've got 2 that are GOP and 3 that are Democrat. And they just said, no, we're not calling a special session. So, but I think some of these states actually get into their normal session before the Congress meets to count these electoral college votes. So they could come together January 2nd or 4th or 5th or whatever their first date is. And the first thing they could do is say, well, now that we're in session, we're going to certify these alternate electors. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter if they do or not. It would be very helpful if they do. But the key to this is when we get to that January 6th where they count the electors. Now, my understanding, I'm not a lawyer, but I've been armchair lawyering this for weeks now, and listening to a lot of those who are lawyers and experts and stuff. And it's really interesting. So on January 6th, when the joint session of Congress meets, normally what happens, well, the procedure is normally it's just a formality, but this year it's going to be a fight. The vice president opens up each slate of electors, each state's alphabetical order by state. Arizona, 11 votes for whoever. Alabama, Arkansas. They just go state by state. He can, if there's competing electors, he gets to decide. He has plenary power to decide which slate of electors that he's going to count. And then if one congressman and one senator object to that slate, then the House and the Senate can go back and debate, and they can decide if they're going to throw it out or if they're going to keep it or whatnot. And so what they can do is what I think they're doing. I think the reason why they got these 7 is they want to set it up so that on January 6th, those 7 states are considered contested. So even if they don't get them certified anywhere, they're certified there so that they can be, or they're there so they can be certified. So the state legislatures can, if they so choose, come back and say, these are this is our electors. They're the ones that voted for Trump. That's our electors. So we want those counted. But even if they're not, all they got to do is keep lawsuits alive in those states. And if they get lawsuits tossed, they just open another lawsuit, and they just keep with the lawsuits. They don't even have to win. They just have to keep the lawsuits going, and then they can argue when they get before Congress, these states are contested. So we don't want them counted in the Electoral College. So it's just really interesting that they picked 7 states. I didn't see New Mexico coming. I had heard they were going to do this in Nevada, and then I started hearing they're going to do it in all the Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia. They were going to do that too. I didn't see New Mexico coming. But they've also filed lawsuits in New Mexico. So what could happen now is it goes before the Congress on January 6th, and no matter how it goes down, I mean, the only way that it comes out for Biden on January 6th is if Trump concedes or Pence decides not to play ball. As long as Pence goes along with this and Trump doesn't concede, it just does. There's no way Biden can win it. It's pretty cool, because what happens is first they got enough contested states going that one option is they could just say, well, let's just throw out all the contested states. We're not going to have contested states this year. It's like they're not even states. There's 7 that are contested. We'll just go by the 43 that are uncontested. Well, if they do that, then Trump has 242 electoral votes. Biden has 212. There are 84 that are contested. So Trump wins. Now, if the Democrats want to contest that, say, well, we're not going to play ball on that, we don't like that, the only other option is it goes to a vote where the House of Representatives decides who the president's going to be. Well, that doesn't work for them there either, because they don't vote simple, straight up, one rep, one vote. They vote by state delegations. So each state gets a vote. And so the representatives in that state all have to get together and decide how their state's vote's going to go. And what I was reading earlier tonight, because I haven't kept up on exactly where they're at in the House of Representatives, but my understanding is that 26 states have a majority GOP delegation. 20 states are majority Democrat, and then there are 4 states that are split. So I'm in Minnesota. As of the new Congress that starts on January, I don't know, whatever, 2nd or 3rd or 4th or whatever, that first day in January, Minnesota will be 4-4. So we'll have 4 Democrats, 4 Republicans. Well, unless one of them jumps ship and says, okay, well, I'll give my vote to your party, they're going to basically not have a vote. So it's going to be 26-20. And even if they got all 4 states, you somehow peeled off a Republican and got them to vote with the Democrats, which I suppose is hypothetically possible, you're still at 26-24. Trump wins. So the way this thing's playing out is really pretty impressive. And a lot of it goes back to that John Eastman. I mean, he's just this really cool constitutional lawyer. He's a professor. Apparently, he's so well respected that a lot of these Supreme Court justices probably studied under him. And if you've been watching any of the hearings that they've been going around with Rudy Giuliani's going around these state hearings, John Eastman's been on a couple of these and given some testimony. He's the one that's arguing that, look, you guys as state legislators, you have sole plenary power to pick your electors. You can go back right now. It can be done at any time. There's Supreme Court precedent that says you have absolute authority on your electors. You can rescind the authority that you delegated to the voters and to the secretaries of state and to the governors. All that power you delegated earlier, you can pull it all right back right now if you want. And he's the one saying that even if you've got a state constitutional amendment that says that you can't do it, the federal constitution trumps that. You can still do it. He's the one that says even if your governor is required to call a special session for any other reason, in this specific case, you're not state agents, you're federal agents. You're agents of the U.S. Constitution. And you, for this one job, you have constitutional authority to get together and pick those electors. So it's really cool. And I'm not saying at all that Trump has this 100%, that he's going to get a second term. I'm just saying this game is not over. It's not, and not at all. It is not over. And don't let anybody tell you it's over. Don't be watching news saying that it's all over. It is not over. In fact, right now, it's really stunning that things looked horrible for Trump the day after the election. They've looked bad at times. Even last Friday when the Supreme Court tossed out that Texas case, for me it was a gut punch. It felt like, man, it's just not looking good. I knew it wasn't the end of the road, but I thought, man, it gets really discouraging at times. But today, when everybody else is looking around saying it's over, Biden's going to be president, not at all. It's a maybe, but the game is definitely not over. So don't lose your optimism quite yet. So yeah, I don't know. We have 13 minutes. It's already gone about twice as long as I expected it to, but I did try my best to keep it short. So hopefully this goes on Twitter without, I don't think it will. I'm going to have to put it on some other platform so that I can post it on Twitter. But yeah, anyway, cool.